When you burn fat, where does it go? That's a good question. I've heard many things. Oh, it goes off as heat. Not true. Comes out of your poo. Not true. Oh, you sweat it out. Oh, what do you mean, fatty sweat? Interesting concept. So if you're an expert or a trainer or someone who's giving advice on fat loss or burning fat, then what gives you the right to give that advice if you can't even answer a simple question of when you burn fat, where does this actually go? So let's have a look at that today of what happens to fat. So let's have a look at fat from a molecular point of view. A fat is made up of carbon, hydrogen and oxygen atoms, and they all form into what we call fat molecules. So yes, there are different types of fat, but they're all basically made up of carbon, hydrogen and oxygen in different formats or different structures to form the different types of fat. So when you eat fat, obviously it goes into the body, gets absorbed, gets into the bloodstream as free fatty acids, gets stored in the fat cells as triglycerides. But when you burn it, obviously what happens, the body takes it out of the fat cell, puts it into the blood, takes it down to the muscle. In the muscle, the energy cell is called a mitochondria. And in that process, in the mitochondria, the body breaks those molecules apart and breaks all the atoms apart. And when you break molecules apart, energy is released. If you want to form molecules, you need energy to form molecules. So that process in the Krebs cycle, breaking those molecules apart, means combusting them or burning them or oxidizing them, whatever you want to call it. That process is called the Krebs cycle, and when you break molecules apart, energy is released, and energy is the byproduct of breaking fat molecules, and that energy is then converted into mechanical energy, means using your muscles, or electrical energy to activate your central nervous system. But what you now have got is all these broken atoms apart, and they restructure in what we call your metabolic byproducts, or the byproducts, the leftovers. But you can't destroy matter. Matter just changes its structure. So matter cannot be destroyed. So when you break it apart, it doesn't go anywhere. It just gets reconfigured into different molecules. And those byproduct molecules, the byproducts of beta oxidization, oxidization of burning of fat, or whatever you want to call it, is carbon dioxide, right, CO2, carbon, oxygen molecules, and water, H2O, hydrogen and oxygen molecules. So if you look at the atoms in carbon dioxide and water, they're the same atoms that make up the molecules in fat, but they're just being broken apart and reconfigured into two different molecules called carbon dioxide and water. So where does fat go? Well, yes, the fat molecule made up of carbon, hydrogen and oxygen gets broken apart, releases energy, and then that gets reconfigured into two byproduct molecules called carbon dioxide and water, which are made up of the same atoms that make fat, but in a different configuration in two separate molecules. So how much goes where? Well, we know from a scientific review and breaking it all down, around about 15%, say 100 calories of fat, around 50%, 15 calories will be the byproduct will go out as water. Now we're not sure where it goes, whether you sweat it out or pee it out. And around 85% will go out as carbon dioxide, means you breathe it out. So 85% of the fat you burn is actually comes out your mouth in the form of carbon dioxide. And then obviously the trees love that. They take the carbon dioxide, take it in and rebuild it into into chemical energy in the form of carbohydrates, in the form of vegetables and fruits and grains, and then we eat it again, and it's this nice little cycle. You can actually see the atoms actually get reconfigured and they go out to the trees, the plants, the grains, the vegetables, then we eat them, and it's a nice little cycle. So matter doesn't get destroyed, not created or not destroyed, it just changes its form. Energy is the same thing. Energy is not created, destroyed, it just changes its form. So I guess essentially what happens to fat is the fat molecules broken apart, broken into carbon dioxide and oxygen, 85, not oxygen, carbon dioxide and water, H2O, 15% goes out of water, 85% goes out as carbon dioxide. So that's why that when you exercise and your heart rate goes up and your respiratory is going up and your breathing rate, what you're basically doing is burning off the byproducts of fat oxidization or burning of fat, and that would be no cow poo.